Hey everyone, it's JT. Welcome back to another JT Talks Jobs. This is the live broadcast here where we talk about everything related to job search, career development, anything that you need to move ahead. Why? Because school taught us everything except how to get the job, except how to grow a career and feel happy in it. So that's what this show is all about. Today, I'm going to be giving you some tips on resumes, specifically resume no-nos. But before I get to that, I want to do a couple of quick housekeeping things. First of all, today, after this session, I'm going to do an open Q&A, and I often refer to a lot of free resources to make it easy. As you can see below, we've got a location where you can go and access those. So don't worry about it. We'll try to pop the links up in the chat, but at the very least, head on over to workitdaily/resources, and you should be able to hit on that. Second thing I want to tell you is that we are doing some crazy cool things to help you in your career, both on TikTok and Instagram. That's right. So if you aren't already following me on those two platforms, please head over and do so. I know a lot of you don't have TikTok yet, but that's more of a reason to get one and follow and learn what it's about. TikTok's not going away. It's blowing up. And believe it or not, it's going to impact your career. I know you think I'm crazy, but it's true. Trust me, that's a prediction. And Instagram, well, enough said on Instagram. You should be following people that inspire you. I hope that I inspire you. Let me send you positive messages every day via Instagram. You can do that by following there. The last thing I want to tell you, and it's pretty cool, is that we are sitting here on 5 platforms. We're live streaming on 5 different social media platforms, but you can only ask questions in the live Q&A, which is coming up in a minute, by being on LinkedIn. So the way to do that is head over to LinkedIn and just find my profile and follow it. When you hit the follow button on my profile, it will give you access to the live stream. And the good thing about that too is it will send you notification anytime I go live. So it's instant, which is really, really helpful. But that's the only place you're going to be able to ask questions and we'll answer them. My team and I are focused on them there. So you can hang out on YouTube, Facebook, all the other places that we are at today. But LinkedIn is the one and only place where you can post your questions and get them answered. All right. And then the last thing I want to tell you before I finally get started is that we have started our own hashtag. So if you're looking to watch past live streams, maybe you miss it and you can't attend or something's going on, or you need information, the hashtag JT Talks Jobs, all things related to this live show and the career content that we share is now having that hashtag on LinkedIn. All you have to do is go over to the hashtags. You'll even see the hashtags in any of our posts. Click on the hashtag and follow it, and that will then send you that information in your feed. So just a couple of easy ways to make sure that you're staying engaged and on top of this stuff so that you can grow your career, okay? All right then, well, I think we've got enough of that. Let's get down to business, shall we? And again, I'm gonna put that free resources link up. Give me 2 seconds to do that so that you can see it there. So, by the way, just a little random side note, shout out to the 2 folks out there. When I'm not looking at you in the camera, I am actually running this show all by my lonesome. So when I'm looking over here, it's because the team is sending me your questions and all that good stuff, or I'm looking at the presentation. So just understand that's what I'm doing when I'm not staring right at you. Some people were asking about that. And of course, I want to answer that question for you. But enough about that. We're going to get down to the business of talking about what? Where is it? Right there. Right there. 3 resume no-nos. These are things you do not want to have on your resume in 2020. All right. So let's get down to it. Number 1 thing I do not want you to have on your resume right now is an objective or a summary statement. So why is that? Well, first of all, most of these when written are very subjective, meaning you try to hype yourself up, you try to sell yourself. I mean, do any of us feel good when we're saying, I'm a proven self-starter, I'm highly innovative with great attention to detail? We're raised not to talk that way about ourselves. And yet for some strange reason, people were told, oh, put that at the top of your resume, make yourself sound impressive. Well, it might have worked decades ago, but it doesn't work now. An objective statement or a summary statement is not needed for a couple of reasons. First of all, recruiters are working at lightning speed these days. They spend about 6 seconds looking at your resume, and then if they like what they see, they go back. So if there's a big paragraph at the top, they're not going to read that. They're going to skip over it and start to look at the other stuff. So that's really wasted space. The best thing to do on the top of a resume is to create what we call a Whitespace Effect, where you draw the eye in to very key pieces of information so that in those 6 seconds, the recruiter can go check, 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 check. Oh, this person is everything I'm looking for. Let me read a little bit more. An objective statement or a summary statement doesn't do that. Now, I have gotten incredible pushback from a few people about this saying, oh, but a recruiter told me to put a summary and objective statement on top so they know what I'm looking for. Okay. Just because someone tells you to do something doesn't mean you should. And let me explain why. Do you know why that recruiter wants you to put that on there? So they can screen you out. Whatever you put in there, if that doesn't jive or mesh with what they're looking for, you just gave them an extra reason to toss you. See, the secret to a great resume these days is to have just the facts and just enough information for them to be intrigued. You want to think of it as you're a business of one, which we talk about all the time here, and this is your marketing copy. And this should be your teaser copy. Again, you want to get their interest, but it's still a little mysterious. We don't have all the data. So what do we have to do? We have to call you. And we have to get you on the phone. And now you suddenly have an opportunity to answer their questions and connect with them and show them your personality and your aptitude and really give them what they need to move you through in the process. But if you try to put everything you've ever done on a resume and you write this big old objective or summary statement, even if they tell you they want it, they're using it against you. So please do not put this thing in the top of your resume. You don't need it. Even if someone tells you it's working against you. I cannot stress that enough, okay? All right, so that was tip number one. Let's look at tip number two. So this is a big one for me. I will open up resumes. So in Work It Daily, I think we've mentioned how it works is people sign up for a membership. They save their resume as a PDF. They send it to our coaches. Our coaches open it up and look at it like a recruiter would. And then they record a video and tell you what's wrong with it. And just yesterday, and for confidentiality reasons, I can't show you this resume, but an executive, right, a six-figure executive sent me his resume. I opened it up and I was visually assaulted. That's the only way to describe it. Visually assaulted. I felt like every other word was bolded, like to emphasize. There was a bunch of italics text, like trying to draw attention in the middle of these big, long paragraphs. And then he would randomly underline stuff. So you open it up and your eye, remember the whole point of these kinds of things, bolding or italics or underline, is to emphasize something. But when your whole resume is bolded, italics, and underline, again, the eye is going like this and nothing is registering, nothing. You need to use bolding very sparingly. There's very key spots. And one example of that would be your job title, for example. So in your work history, your job title should always be first and bolded, but then where you work shouldn't be bolded. And that's because as a recruiter, I want to be able to quickly go down and see your job title progression. And if everything's bolded, if there's too much bolding, I can't do that. So you want to be very sparing with your bolding. I am not a fan of italics at all anywhere on a resume or of underlining. I think you're going to use one thing, it's going to be bolding, and you're going to use it sparingly. And for me, that creates a much cleaner visual and it's a lot easier to read. Okay, so that's the second thing you don't want to have big no-no on your resume in 2020. And the third and final thing before we get down to some questions today, as you can see, is bullet points longer. Oh, sorry, there it is, here. I can't work today. Bullet points are longer than 2 lines. So what do I mean by that? Well, think about it. A bullet point, by definition, is supposed to be a point. It's supposed to be succinct, short. And then I open up resumes and the bullet points in a job are 4 lines long. And that's a long paragraph, and I'm not going to read it, and nor is a recruiter. Especially if you haven't quantified yourself in any way, meaning you haven't added any numbers in there. So what you really should be shooting for is if you have a bullet point in your work history, get it to 2 lines max. If it's rolling to a 3rd line, I want you to go back through and I want you to remove every adjective or adverb you're using to hype yourself. Because I promise you, if it's taking you more than 2 lines to explain yourself, that's a problem. That's a run-on sentence. And every bullet point should just be a sentence. Keep it short. That is the purpose. Again, we don't want to tell them everything we've ever done, and we don't want to try to oversell ourselves, because if a recruiter sees something they don't like, they're not going to call you. And on top of that, just another thing, when people are too wordy in their resumes and their resume ends up being 2 or 3 pages long, the visual impression that you're giving is that you're a talker. You're not going to come up for air because you're so wordy. You're desperate because you're trying to sell yourself too hard, or you're just flat out narcissistic. You think the world of yourself. Now, I know none of those are who you are, and that's certainly not any of the messages you want to send. But remember, people hear what they see. And a resume is a visual representation of you. And it's a first impression a lot of the times because they haven't spoken to you yet. So the amount of content on a resume and the way you formatted that content is very, very important because it says a lot about you as a person to that recruiter. Okay, so those are the three big no-nos. Listen, I'm going to give you the opposite of that. Another great free resource that we have is over on YouTube. You can head over to the Work It Daily channel. It's the 5 resume must-haves. And again, that's the positive side to this. It will really tell you the things that you do need on your resume these days. And I know my team is going to chat that in the link for you as well. But I just can't stress it enough that your resume is not only a first impression, it is your marketing teaser copy. And you need to know how to do it in a way that doesn't get you screened out. That being said, folks, just applying online with a resume isn't doing much for your job search anyways. 97% of the time, people are screened out and a human eye never even sees your resume. So the first step is to get your resume in good shape. And then your second step is to learn a job search process that will help you go around the applicant tracking system and get that resume in front of somebody who can screen you in instead of screening you out. And if you need more information on job search around that, you definitely want to go to our resources page. We have this incredibly cool, and I can't take credit for it, the team here at Work It Daily built it. It's a job search checklist, and it tells you everything you need to have in order to be effective in a proactive job search. So go over there, grab that free resource. It's pretty cool as well because, resumes are important. You need one, but it is not the thing that's ultimately going to get you hired. What's going to get you hired is a proper job search where you've completely prepared for every step of the way. And that job search plan will walk you through how to do it. Okay? Awesome. All right. So I am going to go straight to Q&A today. I wanted to leave more time for Q&A. This week, we've been so busy. We had a huge session yesterday around age discrimination. Took up a lot of time. Today, I want to free it up since it's my last live stream of the week. I want to answer your questions. And I also want to tell you and tell us what you think in the chat, by the way. Let me just bring myself up again, not looking at you. Hang on a second. And there we go. We are thinking about doing a live broadcast where we can dial you in. So if any of you have ever watched Ask Gary Vee, where he has people on audio and they ask questions, we're thinking about doing that. What do you think about that? What do you think about that, Live Stream Nation? Do you think that's something we should do here on the show? Should we do a JT Talks Jobs live edition Q&A? If so, let us know in the comments. And if you've got any suggestions on great software we can use to dial you in, then we'd be interested in that as well, okay? Awesome. We'll crowdsource that idea together. So now we're going to get down to it. Again, give me a second. The team has put together a very, very cool document that I need to look at that tells me questions. So let me get that up in front of you. Again, for the person out there that was being snarky on me and my team was saying, hey, they're saying you're not looking at the camera. When I'm not looking at all of you folks, I'm looking at your questions. All right. Awesome. Okay. So let's get to those, shall we? So the first question's from Lorena. Shout out to Lorena. I have 23 years of experience, you go girl, on top of my resume. Would it be better if I cut it back to not be aged out or experience discriminated against? Okay. Well, first of all, congratulations. And Lorena, if you did not see my live stream yesterday, go over to hashtag JT Talks Jobs. You'll find it in the stream. I talk extensively about this idea of age discrimination, or what we call the wisdom tax. So the wisdom tax is the fact that most people are going to assume that you're overpriced and that you have too much experience because of those 23 years. So my first piece of advice is you don't need to go back more than 15 years. That's your most relevant experience anyways. Now, if there's something really relevant in, say, the 15 to the 20-year mark, let's say you worked for a really big brand or name or something in your industry, something significant that you still feel like you're tapping into in your career, then you absolutely could list that as well. But I historically would not go back more than 15 years, okay? That will automatically make you more current. Here's the thing though, Lorena, it doesn't just stop there. It might get you a few more phone screens, but if you aren't prepared to deliver a brand that is more current, a brand as a seasoned professional that really shows you're in tune with what's happening in the changing dynamics and the fact that, the entire workforce is shifting, if you're not adopting and adapting to that, then you're not going to make it past the phone screen. So yes, to cutting down the resume, but you've also got to go that much further and make sure that your entire job search process and all the techniques that go with it are as equally updated and fresh as possible. The goal these days for anybody over the age of 40 is to show the younger generation, everyone really, that you've stayed curious, that you've continued to challenge yourself, that you're getting more humble with age, more intellectually humble, and more emotionally intelligent. And when you're able to convey that, you're very approachable and you're very attractive to employers. My issue with people over the age of 40 is that they start to peak out. And again, you'll see this in the training. They start to get set in their ways. I hear things, I'm tired, JT. I just want to go to my job and go home. Okay, that's fine. You are totally entitled to have those feelings. Just understand that's a brand message, and with it is going to come limited opportunity. And okay, that's okay. If you're okay with that, the working world's okay with that. If you're not okay with that, if you don't like the results you're getting right now over 40, then you got to change your tactics. You got to change your strategy. It's the only way you're going to get the results you're looking for. And trust me, I've seen people every day come in to me and say, JT, I'm 52. I'm 52, right? I'm 52. I'm JT, I'm 52 and I'm completely being discriminated against. And then we work together and we get their brand current and we get their strategy current and we get them looking at the whole situation through a different lens, through the perspective of others. And all of a sudden, they're a hot commodity again and employers want to talk to them. It has so much more to do with your mentality and your outlook and the way that you brand yourself than you realize, folks. Okay. And Lorena, I know that's a lot more than you asked for, but hey, you're already smart enough to be thinking along those lines. I know you need to stick with it and carry that theme all the way through. Okay. Awesome. All right. Let's take a look here to Tina. Where can I find more info on the white space as opposed to the objective statement? Tina, you'll find that in the YouTube video that I sent. So make sure the team is actually putting it somewhere in the chat, in the LinkedIn chat, folks. I got to remind you, everything's happening on the LinkedIn chat. So if you're watching on some of the other channels, YouTube, Facebook group, etc., head on over to LinkedIn, follow my LinkedIn profile, and you'll be able to get in there and get those resources. All right, let's talk to Regina. Regina says, what are some great hard skills to add and how long should a resume be? Awesome question, Regina. So if you're on yesterday's live chat, folks, I had this huge tutorial on the difference between hard skills and soft skills. I'm actually amazed at how many people still don't understand the difference. A soft skill is something you can't measure. Attention to detail, patience, and outgoing personality. Those are soft skills. They're good to have, but they're not measurable. Real transferable skills, the things that need to go on a resume, are hard skills. Project management, marketing, digital marketing, presentations, training and development, operations, finance, budgeting, research, data analytics. Anything that you can measure in your work is a task that you measure, and we can quantify in some way how many of them you've done, the size of them, the scope of them, the percentage of them, right? Vendor management, in sales, anything that you can quantify, business development, you can tell me how many accounts or what you grew. Those are quantifiable accomplishments that tie to the transferable skills. So when you're building a resume, you're building a brand message. In the top of the resume, you're putting the transferable skills, which you're saying, hey, these are how I deliver value. At a 30,000 foot view, this is how I deliver value. Now, when I go down to the work history as a recruiter, what I'm expecting to see are bullet points that quantify your accomplishments, that prove out you are those things. So if you tell me that you are a business development specialist, then when I go down and look at your work history, I'm going to see things like business development, manager or account manager for the top job title. And then in the bullet points, I want to see things like grew territory from 20 accounts to 300 accounts, grew revenues from 100,000 a year to 2 million a year, top President's Club winner 5 times in a row. So something like that is how you're quantifying you are what you say you are in the top. And that's how we all have to do our resumes. And, that's such a powerful exercise. Most people have never been through that. But once you go through the process of understanding how to build a personal branded resume, it's a game changer. I get so upset, and I've ranted on this before. I don't think that you should outsource your resume. And, I know that upsets a lot of resume writers, but my problem is that you need to own and understand your brand. You're giving away a very important part of the job search process when you let somebody else write about you. And I've also seen situations, not all, by the way, but some where resume writers have charged a lot of money. And what they've done is created this big fancy looking resume that makes you feel super important, but is completely wrong for recruiters. And that's because the resume writer got you to pay them $1,000. So they know they need to impress you. Doesn't matter that it's not impressing a recruiter. They just had to make you feel like you got your money's worth. And then you go out and use it. And for some reason, the resume isn't working. Well, yeah, it's not working because it's not formatted right. So please be careful. Please invest in the resources, whether you work with us at Work a Daily or not, honestly, just invest in getting a current resume that is fact-based, has white space, and is properly branded to your skill sets. The skill sets you say you have need to match up with what you're bulleting out in the work history. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for asking that question. So we've got a question here from Michelle, and Michelle says, Do you have to indicate bilingualism on the resume, even if it's not a job requirement? No, Michelle, but I think it's wonderful to add in this day and age. We live in a global world. Okay, there's a joke, and all my fellow Americans will understand this. They say if you speak 3 languages, you're trilingual. If you speak 2 languages, you're bilingual. If you speak 1 language, you're American. That was a joke that they told me when I lived in France for a year. And I get it. It hasn't been a big emphasis in our country to learn languages, but it's really changing. And being global companies now, having people who are multilingual is pretty important. So I personally feel you should put that right. We have people put it right in the top folder of their resume, just which languages they can speak fluently. So that's my advice. All right, who else do we have here? We have one from Vignay. Am I saying that right? Hi, Vignay. Vignay says, how do you show yourself effectively when you're a freshman and do not have enough experience working in the industry? All right, first of all, Vignay, how am I to have a freshman in college watching this right now? So mind blown and super excited. I'm not going to lie, because most college students get to college and all they're focused on is going to school, having a good time, and they start thinking about this work thing, maybe junior year when they need an internship, or senior year. You're a freshman and you're here. So first of all, hats off. You're already 10 steps ahead of everybody else. Way to go. And secondly, the fact that you're saying, how do I stand out? That's such a common concern with young people today. Here's what you need to know. Employers, they know you don't have experience. They get it. You know what they're looking for? Passion. And by passion, I mean intensity to solve a problem bigger than yourself. I want to know what you care about. I want to know the problems in the world that you would like to learn more about, and devote whatever skills you have, no matter how basic they are, to helping to move the needle in that area. That's what I want to see, because what you lack in experience, Vignay, you make up for in enthusiasm and being part of the company's tribe. So you, my friend, are a perfect candidate for doing some homework and identifying the companies whose missions you believe in, whose products you believe in, whose services. Don't worry about whether or not they're a good employer and they've got great benefits and all that. Forget it. I want you to look at them and say, I identify. That stuff fuels me. And you have to ask yourself where, Vignay. And this is so important to learn. Nobody taught us this in school, and I really wish they did. And that's to ask myself, why am I fired up about this? Why do I care about this? What in my life has taught me to care about this? And then tell the employer that story. You write a beautiful cover letter that says, here's why I'm so passionate about what your company does. I would love to work for you someday. Can you tell me what I need to do to get on your radar screen? That, my friend, is how people like you will get jobs at amazing companies. And I know that there's a lot of more senior people on here. Back me up right now in the comments. Tell Vignay I'm not joking. We understand that Vignay doesn't have experience, so Vignay needs to make up for it in passion and enthusiasm for what we do as a company, because that's how we know, Vignay, that you're going to wake up each day and want to come to work. That's how we're going to know that you are internally motivated to do this work. We need you to care. So you've got to start looking deeply at what you care about, Vignay, and then you've got to start networking. You're on a beautiful platform to do it. It's called LinkedIn. It's a beautiful, beautiful platform to be able to reach out to total strangers and say, I completely dig your company. I'm a college student, and I would love to hear from you 1 or 2 tips of what you think it's going to take to earn a spot at your company someday. People love that. We eat that up because you know what? Nobody your age is doing it. Nobody. And that's how you stand out, okay? And I'm so excited. By the way, Vignay, total separate subject. We're trying to figure out how to get the Work It Daily word out on every campus. So please message me on LinkedIn. I would love to get your perspective as a freshman on what it's going to take to get Work It Daily, the phone app, in the hands of every college student so we can start coaching them so they can figure this stuff out before they graduate with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt and no career direction, which is an absolute sin and is happening every May. And I can't stand it, and we want to fix it. So message me, okay, my friend? Awesome. All right, let's move on. We've got McCain here, and it says, it looks like Brianna McCain. She advised Whitespace, but I do not understand what that means. Okay, way to go, Brianna. Great for me to bring that up. A lot of people don't know what I mean by Whitespace. So Whitespace is a marketing technique. All my marketers out there, you know what I'm talking about. The idea is that on a page, you want to have white space, because white space is all the space around something that's blank. So let's imagine this. If I put one word in the middle of an 8.5 by 11 page and everything else around it was blank, do you think you'd remember that one word? Yeah, you would, because it was the only thing there. Your eyes dialed right in onto it. So we can't only have one word on a resume, but the less we have on the resume and the more we create white space. So we teach at Work It Daily a white space technique for the top fold, which is the first thing that you see when you open a resume. And in doing so, very quickly, you're seeing certain things and the brain is processing and starting to brand you as a professional. And this is really important. White space makes it easier for me to absorb. And then what I choose to put there forms an impression. The human brain is designed to judge. We are a judgy race, and that's because we have something called the ancient brain, and the ancient brain had many, many experiences coming at it. Every day we have many, many experiences coming at us, and we have to figure out, are we safe or are we not safe, right? So the brain processes the experience and wraps a perspective around it and stores it away so that the next time we run into that experience, we can pull that back up really quickly and decide how to react or respond. And it's all designed so that we can be on autopilot more throughout the day. If we had to think about everything we do from the moment we wake up in the morning, like put real brain power into deciding every day, we'd be exhausted by noon. So our bodies, our brains start to process this stuff and store it away. And that makes us be able to go on autopilot and do a lot of things without thinking about it. And so the reason I tell you that is that we all judge. We meet people, we hear what they do for a living, we hear about skill sets, and we start to judge. Do we like that? Do we not like it? Do we agree with it? And all of that gets processed in this ancient brain and gets called up. So what we're doing here with this technique is dialing a person in and being very intentional about what we choose so that they're then recalling this stuff and forming an impression about who we are as a professional. Real stuff. This is the kind of science that has to go into your resume these days in order to make the right impression. And so choosing carefully and not putting everything on there is the first step. And that's how you create white space. Okay. Hopefully that helps. Let's say, what about using small pictures and clip art expressing the projects you manage, i.e. a car's picture, not on your resume, not on your resume, folks. Here's something I want you to think about. One of the reasons LinkedIn blew up, such a great platform, but one of the reasons it blew up is it standardized the online resume. Your profile is essentially your resume online. And while you can customize what you put in the headline or what you put in the about section or what you put in the work history, fundamentally, structurally, every profile is laid out the same way. And recruiters love it. I love it because I know where to go look for something. It speeds up my ability to get what I need because I open it up and I know where to go. With resumes, that's not the case, right? Here we all out there. There's no standardized resume format. Everybody's out there designing their own thing. And the biggest mistake you can make is get overly creative. Even the creative types out there, by the way, even the folks that are in, digital marketing or in a creative space, graphic design, your resume is not a creative tool. Your resume is fact. And the better organized and more in the format of the way that recruiters expect it, the more thumbs up you're going to get. When you start getting wonky and creative and confusing them, and they're having to work even harder to figure out who you are and whether or not you have the experience, you are working against yourself. You are losing points with a recruiter. You're not gaining points. So no special pictures on a resume, no crazy design, simple, factual. It's boring. A resume is boring, intentionally boring. It's built for speed, not for look. Does that make sense to everybody? Hopefully that does. Now, if you want to build some sort of personal website and have a portfolio on it, well, you could do that and you could put that link in the top of your resume. But your resume is not a place to get creative. It isn't. Okay, so let's keep going here. So Kwame, I hope I'm saying that right. How many pages should my CV be if I have 10 years of experiences? It depends on the depth of the experience, but historically it would be 1 page, maybe 1.5. So most people under 10 years of experience have a 1-page resume. 10 to 15 years, almost 20 years is 2-page. Over 20 years, you might go to a 3rd page. Now, there are exceptions to every rule. Sometimes I've seen people, just the way their experience rolls, they're at 15 years of experience, but they're on 3 pages, but they've created a very white space driven resume so that There's not so much text on the page, hence why it's 3 pages, but it's very easy to read and absorb. I would much rather have you have a white space 2-page resume than you try to cram it all in on 1 page and give me, 1/4-inch margin and 8-point font, and that is awful. Doesn't work. So it's all about that white space and creating something that's very readable. So you might roll to 2 pages as a result, depending on your 10 years of experience. I can't give you a hard and fast rule there. It has a lot more to do with the actual content of your experience and how it needs to be laid out. All right, let's see here. Lily says, what do you think about just placing accomplishments instead of job duties to keep the resume short? Exactly, Lily. I don't need to know your job duties. I need to know what you got done. Now, there's a way to quantify that. So I always use this example because it's one of my, favorite memories. I was working with a young woman who had no confidence. She was a receptionist, and she said, I can't quantify. All I am is a receptionist. Of course, don't say that to me because that's just crazy. And I said, you are doing something very important. How many people work at that company? 400. And how many phone lines is it? 10 lines. And how many calls do you take a day? Over 150. Okay. So your bullet point is ran a 10-line phone, receptionist for a 10-line phone system for a company of 400 people, fielding over 150 calls a day. That's under 2 lines long, but right then and there, I understood the size and scope of the work and just how busy she was. And it made her feel good because she realized, wow, I actually do something very important. And she did, and we all do. We just have to know how to quantify ourselves. So listing the accomplishments or quantifying the job duties in terms of how you get it done, either one of those will work. The brilliant thing about quantifying is that when we start to think about quantification, it naturally pares us down. We get less wordy because, hey, a 10-line phone system says a lot more than us trying to say, politely answered phone calls to ensure customers were happy as I transferred them. I don't need to know that. You don't need to say that. 10-line phone system, big phone system. See the difference, everyone? Awesome. Great question, Lily. Let's see. What should I use in place of an objective statement? So, Michael, in this case, in the top fold, what we teach at Work It Daily is a headline, which labels you. And then your key skill sets, your hard skills, your transferable skills. Again, if you don't know what those are, watch yesterday's live stream. And we usually have you set that up in a 2-column format, then followed by things like your degrees, your certifications, industries, languages. It really depends. So overall, it's the key information that somebody needs in order to assess you in the first pass. And what do I mean by that? Recruiters are technical buyers. You're going to hear this a lot from me this year. A technical buyer is someone who's evaluating your service and deciding whether or not it's compliant. If it's compliant, then you're eligible to move to the next round. So a recruiter can't get you ultimately hired. You're still going to have to meet other people and someone's going to have to choose you, but they can get you disqualified. And that's why technical buyers, we're all trying to pass the technical buyer in the first pass. So with resumes, we try to design them in a way that it gives the technical buyer the exact information they need and no more. Just enough to pass the technical requirements, but also gets them to say, well, now I need to pick up the phone and talk to you. This is what I mean about teaser copy. So you have to have that white space and that top fold designed in a way that accomplishes that. All righty then. Let's see what else we got here. Daniel says, about linking up with your dream employer, should I be sending them messages even when they don't reply? So Daniel, I would do due diligence. If there's an employer that you love, your first step is to try to find somebody who knows somebody there. So for example, I would go over to LinkedIn. I would go to the company page. I would go then to the employee section. So if you go to a company page on LinkedIn, folks, over on the right, it'll show you how many employees are on LinkedIn. You click on that, and then it shows you the list of employees. And what you can do is see if you are second line connected with any of them. So what that means is somebody that you're connected to on LinkedIn is also connected to that person. That's a really key connection because you can reach out to that person you're connected to and say, hey, I see you know Bill Jones. He works at my dream employer. Would you be willing to introduce me so that I could ask him a few questions about what he thinks it takes to get hired there? I'm not going to ask him to get me a job. I'm not going to ask him to refer me to the hiring manager because you don't want your contact to feel pressure. But I do want to learn what it would take. So that's how you're going to increase the chances that you will get introduced. If you do not have any second line connections, then what you need to do is research a bunch of the employees at the company and find points of commonality. So try to find all the people that work at the company that maybe went to the same university as you, or maybe they have the same degree, they majored in the same thing, or maybe you both worked at the same place, or you volunteer for the same type of organization. You have to do some profile stalking. You're just really doing your homework, and try to find 10 people, Daniel, 10 people where you can identify some point of commonality. Then you are going to customize a connection request on LinkedIn and say, we haven't met, but I see we both share this, whatever the commonality is. And then you want to say, can we connect? I'm a huge fan of your employer, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the number one thing to consider when applying for a job there. So what you're doing there is saying, hey, I would like your opinion on something very specific, one piece of advice. Would you be open to giving that to me? Now, you're going to do that 10 times, Daniel. And that's because the chances that all 10 respond to you is very slim. LinkedIn is not a social network anymore. It's a social marketplace. Its primary function these days is for us to brand ourselves. It really is. And for people to proactively find us. But we're not going to accept every connection request we get. Back in the early days when it was novel and new and people, the early adopters on LinkedIn, yes, they were highly engaged, but that's not what LinkedIn is anymore. And that's okay. We don't need it to be. What you need to do though, Daniel, is play the numbers game. Because studies show right now that if you can get 1 in 5, or in this case, 2 in 10 to respond to you, you're crushing it. So I need you to wrap your head around those numbers, because that means that I'm telling you 80% of the time you're going to be rejected on LinkedIn. Yeah, so what? It's not going to kill you. It's no big deal. So they didn't respond to you. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Next. Move on to the next person. But reach out, because if you can get 2 people to connect with you, that's 2 people you're now connected with at the organization that might give you some insider information. Also, when you then reach out to the recruiter at that company and tell them why you're a fan, and that recruiter goes to look you up on LinkedIn, you want to know the cool thing that happens? It immediately tells them that you are connected to 2 people at the company. And to the recruiter, oh, wow, they're connected to 2 people at the company. I should check them out. So this is a really cool way to be able to increase the chances that a recruiter will pay attention to you as well. So you have to do it. You have to play the numbers game. You have to understand. You have to do your homework. I mean, you don't want to blindly just spam, 100 people at a company. You need to do your homework, be thoughtful, be intentional. And then you want to go there and you want to customize the connection request. And again, 1 in 5 people responding is pretty awesome. Now, one little tip I'll tell you about in case any of you don't know about it, and I'll ask the team to type it in the chat for you. There's a website. It's called recruitin.net, RECRUITIN. So the word recruit and then the word IN all together, .net. And this site lets you do searches on LinkedIn profiles based on company or location or job title. And what it does is it searches and finds all the profiles on Google and gives you a list of the profiles. Now, the reason I would encourage you all today, if you're in active job search and you're doing this and you're trying to find a bunch of people at a company, the reason I would encourage you to use recruitin.net is that when you do too many searches on the actual LinkedIn platform, it shuts you down for high level use. It's assuming that maybe you're a bot and you're doing something illegal. They're also trying to get you to buy a paid subscription, which in some cases might work for you, but not for everyone. And so if you want to get around that, you can use this free site, recruitin.net, to do a lot of that searching, because the searching isn't happening on your LinkedIn account. It's happening out in Google. And then you can look at the profiles and go from there. And that can be a great way for you to be able to do that research and find those 10 people that you want to talk to, okay, or reach out to. Awesome. Ooh, I hope that helped. By the way, in case any of you are wondering, every month in Work It Daily, our members, we do a class for them. We do a, like a master training, a live training. It's 3 weeks long. Each day we record a session. They can attend it live or watch it later. It's just a really great way to do what we say, work it daily and get better skilled. In January, we did interview skills. This month, this February, we're doing one called Network Like a Boss, and it starts next Monday. So if you would love to learn some of the networking techniques and really see how it works, like what I just explained, and understand networking in 2020, you may want to take our Networking Like a Boss course. And all you have to do is be a member of Work It Daily. So you sign up for a membership, You can cancel at any time, but if you want to just be a member for the month of February to take that course alone, you can, but you would also then get access to all of our courses. You would get access to our community, our networking with all our other members, and you would get access to our coaches. So while you're doing the network like a boss, you could get your resume reviewed, your LinkedIn profile reviewed, work with our coaches and get everything fixed. So a great opportunity for you to try Work It Daily and also take the networking like a boss class. Okay, so go check it out. Okay, I want to jump down to Ted because Ted says, I'm 63, but more fit than a 30-year-old. Go, Ted. That's what I want to hear. I remain a competitive triathlete. Not easy stuff, by the way. Have you done an Ironman, Ted? Got to tell me. Can I use this to my advantage? I also teach the latest in trading technologies at a college part-time. Can I use these traits to help me? Yes, Ted, of course. So first of all, Ted's pointing out that he is staying youthful. He is not sitting on the couch. That is for sure. But the way that you want to leverage these things, Ted, could they go on your resume? Most definitely. Where I see the real power and potential in this, Ted, is in the branding aspect of yourself. If you love triathlons, get more involved with the triathlon community in your area. You're going to meet people of all ages. Absolutely. Write an article on how being a triathlete has helped you stay competitive and relevant in your space and post it on LinkedIn. You know, create some content around how being a triathlete has made you stronger in your career, and how vice versa, what your career has taught you in order to be good at triathlons. I don't know. Put the word out there. This is branding. And I'll talk more about that in a second. Same thing with teaching at the college. So you're teaching at the college. All these students are learning from you. My question to you, Ted, is what are you learning from them? Are you getting them together for coffee? Are you taking one of your classes and just saying, hey, what are you all passionate about these days? What matters to you these days and why? What are you thinking about and why? Are you listening to them or are you just talking at them? And my guess is the fact that you mentioned this is you're probably listening to them. Amp up the listening, Ted. You aren't here and they're here. And I know you know that, but I think everyone else needs to hear that. Even though you're the professor, they have as much to teach you as you teach them. Get curious about them. Spend time learning about them. They know things that you don't. They have a pulse on the world that you don't. Take that all in and be grateful for it. Your openness and acceptance of that is going to completely change what they think about you. Because if you watched my session yesterday, I've talked about the fact that the OK Boomer movement, and somebody joked and said, a movement, yeah, it's a movement. It's a movement of a bunch of people in their 20s and 30s, aka millennials, who got dumped on for a decade and are finally old enough to say, forget you. We're taking over now. And that's a pretty scary thing because they've become the majority. So we have to distance ourselves from that. We all have to say, don't put me in that camp. I am not that boomer. I am different. I do care about every generation. I do care about you. I want to learn from you. I hope you want to learn from me. I have intellectual humility. I have emotional intelligence. These are the things that need to resonate and come through if you are over 40 right now. And so the fact that Ted knows this and asked this question already tells me, Ted, that you're so in tune with it. Ratchet it up some more, Ted. Get curious, get humble, get excited about this generation that is now, half the workplace and growing. That's what we have to think about these days. They're not going to stop coming. People younger than us aren't going to stop coming, folks. We're going to get older, and then there's going to be younger people behind us that can do things better, faster, cheaper. So we need to recognize that. We need to pay attention to it. We need to do something with it. Awesome question, Ted. Good luck. So let's see. Kathy says, how do you approach recent layoffs? I managed to get my master's degree. I'm 55 years old. So yeah, this is really interesting, Kathy. I actually subscribe to a layoff digest. So I get notified every day when major companies are laying off, and they're in my inbox every day. And so people say, is a recession coming? Well, eventually a market correction is coming. Most definitely. Do I think it's a recession? I don't know, but a market correction is coming. But I will tell you this, layoffs are going to be the new normal. There's not going to be this period of time where there's just a bunch of layoffs and then there's not any layoffs. Right now, every industry is constantly being disrupted and companies that were stable are becoming destabilized. Layoffs are the new normal. On top of that, one of the business practices that's becoming very on trend is to lay off every year. You go, well, wait a minute. I thought layoffs were only reserved for dire times. Nope. The new trend is for companies to look at their business and at the end of the year, decide what's underproducing and lay everybody off. They're essentially pruning that part of the business to free up resources, to free up money, to put it towards something new that can keep the business alive. And this is really important because if businesses aren't growing, they're dying. So companies are starting to realize that you can't stay stagnant. You can't stay status quo anymore. So you're going to start seeing companies that are perfectly healthy laying off as part of the pruning process. And there are companies that do it already. Bank of America does it every year. Viacom does it every year. It's always around Christmas, always around the end of the year, just so you know, so that they can do their cuts for the new year. Lots of companies do this. It is the new normal. So it is what it is. I think the upside to that, if there is an upside, is the fact that if that's the new normal, then it's a lot less surprising to a recruiter if you say, I got laid off. Okay, you got laid off. Now what are you focused on? You're between jobs. Being laid off is not that you did anything wrong. It's just that the company switched directions and they don't have the money to pay for you anymore. That's it. And if you can see it that way and accept it and not take it personally, emotionally, you're going to be in a better place to really go forward and pursue that next opportunity because you're not carrying this weight or this feeling of rejection or guilt or whatever it is that you're processing about that. The company had to make layoffs. You got cut. Moving on. The sooner you can get to that mental space and not carry those rocks with you, the freer you're going to be to go wow them in a job interview. So it's just the new normal, and you should think of it that way. All right. Vishal says, how do you position yourself when you're applying for a role in a new industry? So folks, this is a really important topic on branding. If you have been in an industry for a long time or in a certain type of job for a really long time, that's your brand. That's what you're known for. So you can't suddenly decide that you should be in this industry or you should do this job now. Nobody's going to look at your resume and make that connection. They don't think that way. Again, technical buyers, recruiters are told, find me somebody with this many years of experience in this industry. They're not going to deviate off that. They're not going to go to the hiring manager and say, oh, but I found somebody in a different industry. And this thing, hiring manager asks for an apple, you give them an apple. You don't give them an orange. So anybody here trying to switch industries or switch professions, traditional job search where you just send your resume somewhere is not going to work for you because you're an orange when they're looking for an apple. You're going to get tossed. You have to build a strategy to get noticed. It's very much like if you were driving down the Autobahn in Germany going 110 miles an hour, you wouldn't just switch lanes. You'd crash. You got to signal. You got to turn on a signal, let people know. Well, when we want to switch careers, when we want to pivot, we've got to signal. And signaling in career change is networking. It's talking to people in the new industry. It's talking to people in the new skill set and saying, you're doing something I am trying to migrate over to. Talk me through that. What do you think it's going to take for me to get there? What are my transferable skills? How do I present that to employers? Who do you think I can talk to about this? Because as you network into a new industry or network into a new type of job, you're giving these people exposure to you and they're able to become brand advocates saying, oh, actually, this person really could do this job. This person really could handle it. You need that kind of endorsement. You need people to recognize and connect the dots that you could, in fact, do these things. It's not going to work if you just try to apply online. I've had people do it all the time. Oh, JT, I've tried to change careers. I can't. What have you done? Well, I've applied to at least 150 jobs. Isn't that trying? It's not even like you tried because 150 times your resume got tossed before a human being even saw it because you did not fit the technical requirements. If you want to change careers these days, folks, it is about networking. It is about pivoting through conversation. And if you would like to network like a boss, here's another shameless plug. Come over to the Network Like a Boss class that we are teaching starting next Monday. All you have to do is be a Work a Daily member and we'll teach you how to do that. Okay? Awesome. Great question, by the way. Ezrin says, what do you do when they ask you about your weaknesses in the interview? Oh, yeah, that's a good one, right? So I can't believe they're still asking this question, but a lot of hiring managers do. So understand that if I'm asking you about your weaknesses, I'm trying to see how you react. Do you get defensive? Do you start saying I'm in awe? Do you make things up? Do you use something like, oh, I think it's my incredible level of commitment and perfectionism? That's a BS answer. I really want to see how self-aware you are because everyone has weaknesses. The question is, do you know how to articulate them in a way that doesn't sound too scary, but also sounds honest? So it's a pretty difficult question. It really is. My advice to you is to step back and be honest with yourself. Sit down and think about the critical feedback you've received from managers or from peers, because hopefully you're asking for it. If you haven't, that's your first step, by the way. You need to go talk to people you worked with and say, hey, be straight with me. Tell me one weakness I had. Just be straight with me. What's one thing I could have been better at? And collectively get some insight on that. Because what I want to hear, if I ask you what your weaknesses are, I want to hear you say, great question, JT. I actually went and asked about a half a dozen of my former coworkers and managers. And based on everybody's feedback, I would say the number one weakness I have is this. And here's how they explained it. And let me tell you how I now try to focus to minimize that. Think about what just got said there. I'm not only comfortable to feedback, I went and asked for it. Collectively, this is what I heard. I didn't take it personally. And by the way, now here's how I'm trying to improve myself. That is a sign of an exceptional employee. That's what I want to hear when I ask you that question. All right. Good question, by the way. And again, proof that you should be doing interview prep. Really, really important. By the way, we have a resource at the resource page, which is the most common interview questions. If you're not sure what interview questions to prepare for, you should go get that list. Very, very comprehensive. All right, how are we doing on time here? Okay, I got about 10 more minutes today, folks. Let's see what we've got here. Again, I'm just going to stop here really quick. What are y'all thinking about a live show where you dial in? Would you want to hear other people talking about their career problems and seeing if we can solve them? Kind of like a career couch, but you wouldn't be on camera. I wouldn't make you go on camera. We just dial you in audio-wise. Sort of Gary Vee style, the Ask Me Anything concept. Let me know in the chat. Tell my team what you think. Robin says, are there any good salary guides out there? Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm a huge fan of Glassdoor, and I'm very partial to them. We've been lucky enough to partner in the past with them on some projects, so I'm very familiar with their resources. They have something called the Know Your Worth calculator, and they take all their data and really type that in based on location and skill set. So I think it's pretty accurate. There's also a site called salary.com, I think payscale.com. I don't know how accurate those are in comparison, but maybe what you want to do is go to all three and do the law of averages. That might be a way to do that, is to look at them all and compare them. But it's never going to be 100% accurate, because here's the thing, folks. Employment's been commoditized, meaning we start to have ranges or standards for what a particular position's worth. No two of us are the same. We're all like a big bushel of apples. Imagine this beautiful bushel of apples. They all are edible. They all look delicious, right? But some are a little more red, some are green, some are bigger, some are smaller, some are tart, some are, sweeter. We're all a little different. And so when an employer chooses us, it's because they looked at what made us slightly different and said that will work better for us. And it's not that the other people were, rotten. It has nothing to do with that. They were equally talented individuals. It's just at the end of the day, the company needed something a little different. As a result, companies will pay slightly different based on that. So I think the bigger question with salary is to know the range, to try to get a sense of what somebody with your baseline Apple skill sets are. And then say to yourself, what about my skill sets is worth more? What's more in demand? What kind of additional value do I give? What kind of problems do I solve? What kind of pain do I alleviate? And what's that worth? And how can I market that so that employer that needs those things will value it and will pay more for it? But you do want to do that and figure that out. It's very important right now. I'm just going to tell everyone to not be overpaid. Be very careful about being overpaid. Make sure that you are competitive in the market. If you're hearing that you're making the most money out of everybody in your space, be very, very afraid. That's not doing you any favors. That's putting you on a fast track to being overqualified and overpaid and struggling to get a job later. You never want to be the most expensive person in a skill set. You don't. So look for your ranges, your salary ranges, and think about a decent pay rate. I mean, you want to be paid what you're worth, but stay competitive and stay on top of it. Because I've seen people who go to a company and get a salary, and then, the company, you're getting a lot of skills for that company. So they're paying you more and more, but they're paying you for that. And all of a sudden the company dissolves or something happens and you go to get hired someplace else and they're saying, I'd never pay you that. You're out of our price range. You're out of our market. That happens a lot. That's a problem. So as a business of one, it's your job to make sure that you are not gouging the market, even unknowingly. You have got to make sure that whatever you're being paid is truly competitive to the marketplace right now. That's in order to stay relevant long-term. And people will say to me, but JT, I want to make more money. Awesome. Be competitive in your space, get paid a fair wage, maybe even a little bit better than fair, but not the most expensive, and go start a side hustle. Diversify your income. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Biggest mistake any of us can make is making all of our income in one job. Everyone should have a side hustle. It's not going to make you tons of money, the side hustle, but having that additional income, that ability to build skills and earn money some other way is very empowering and very important. Okay. Lorene is asking, best font for a resume. My personal favorites are Calibri and Arial. Clean line fonts, nothing curly tailed, no Times Roman, nothing scripty. You can't read scripty. It slows the eye down. Clean line fonts, very current. And it's funny, anybody over the age of 40 is going to be like, oh, wait, but I want my resume to look classy, and fancy fonts make my resume look classy. What did I just tell you? Recruiters want speed. They don't want classy. They want to be able to read it easily. You got to get over that. That's a great example of being old school and showing your age. So having a current font, a clean line font is one way to look younger, at least from a professional standpoint. Let's see. Michelle says, I'm applying for a new job at a company I worked at many years ago. Interesting. I have the current HR contact information from before. Should I apply online and also send my application to them? How do I connect appropriately? Oh, wow. So Michelle, I think that you should go ahead and apply, right? Because I think the reason you're asking this is you don't want to necessarily think that you're got an inside edge or any favors and skip the hiring process. So go ahead and apply online, fill out every field, get everything in there, then go to HR and send a message and say, I know it's been a while, but I wanted to reach out. I saw the XYZ position and I've gone ahead and applied. It would be really exciting to be working there again. I was wondering, if there's anything you think I can do to stand out, given that I have worked there before. Do you have any suggestions? So it's more of a question of, hey, just to let you know, I followed the rules. But I also want you to wonder, do you have any advice for me in terms of being a potentially returning employee? Is there anything I can do to stand out or make a good impression? Which again shows your intellectual humility and your desire to please them, and that you're not thinking you're getting any special favors. And I think that that's really important that you do. So go do that and good luck. Also, really quickly, if you have friends that still work there, I strongly encourage you to reach out to them on LinkedIn too and just say, I know it's been ages, but I just applied to the XYZ position. I'd love to catch up for a few minutes and hear how you think the company's changed. And if you have any tips as I go through the application process on how I might stand out and really, show them that I've caught up with the times and how the company's changed, could we chat? I'd love to hear what you're working on as well, et cetera, et cetera. So try to rekindle that networking relationship. It would be good for you to talk to a few people that are currently at the company. Excellent question. All right, I've got time for one more today. Before I answer this last question, just a reminder to everyone, listen, go check out the free resources. Also, go follow TikTok and Instagram. We're doing crazy cool stuff over there that will inspire you every day. Work It Daily. We're all about daily inspiration. Great place for you to do that. And of course, if you're not already following it after today, click the hashtag in the top of the sign today that says JT Talks Jobs and follow the hashtag. That way you're always going to be able to get everything that we did. If you miss any of our live streams, you'll be able to go back. It's just, hashtags are so easy. It's very current, by the way. Anybody over the 40, you may not be big on hashtags. This will make you cooler. So go ahead and do that as well. And now I'm going to take my last question for the week. And it's from Michael. Michael says, I feel like a stalker when I'm networking. How do I not come off as one of them? That is hilarious. I love that. And I get it. I totally get it, Michael. We can feel like a stalker in the sense that, we do all this homework and we're reaching out to them. It's sort of this way. Let's forget that you're online for a moment, Michael, and everyone else listening. And let's imagine you go to a business event. It's a networking event. It's a business cocktail party, etc. But you walk in, Michael, you don't know a soul. You don't know anyone. So we immediately, our nerves go up because we know that we're going to have to do that awkward, awful feeling thing where we have to strike up the conversation first, right? So here's my advice. When you walk up to somebody, what you're not going to do is start monopolizing the conversation. You're not going to talk their ear off. What we normally know to do is to ask them a question. And if we ask them an open-ended question that requires a more than one word answer, and we start to talk to them and we really listen to what they say, and ask follow-up questions that show that we're listening to what they say and show a genuine interest in them. So for example, if I was at an event with total strangers and I saw a small group of people that were kind of hanging out, I might go up and say, I'm sorry, I'm here all alone. I hope you don't mind me breaking into the conversation. Was just curious what brought you all to the event today. So what I did, I kind of called out the obvious. I feel a little awkward, feel a little silly, but hey, I'm here alone. And I'd love to learn what brought you all to this event today. Let them talk. So now think about that same concept, what we did there. Now let's go online. Going over and researching somebody's profile and seeing they went to the same school, like the same interests, whatever it is, that's that way to ice break so that it's not completely cold. So you could reach out to somebody, you could direct message them and say, we haven't met, but I came across your profile when I was researching XYZ company, and I see that you studied biology. I did too in college. Can we connect? I'd really love to get your take on what it's like to be doing that type of work at the company. See what I'm saying? So what you're doing there is being honest, being a bit vulnerable, and saying, I'd really like to learn more about you and your work. Now, not everyone's going to respond. If you went to a networking event, and one of the reasons it makes us uneasy is that somebody might not respond. But again, we play the numbers game. You're going to move over and talk to somebody else, and eventually you're going to find somebody where you're both very similar in terms of where you're at and how you're feeling, and you're going to bond, and you're going to have this great conversation, and you're going to leave going, awesome. I had one great conversation tonight. I just made a new friend. Same thing on LinkedIn. You're using the same tactics and techniques that you do in a live situation online, and not everyone's going to respond, and you don't take it personally because eventually somebody will. And that's when you will make progress. All right? So you're not stalking. It's just the reality, but it's an important one because today your network is your net worth. Every job is temporary. Our situations are constantly changing. Industries are changing. Layoffs are happening daily. We can wake up one day and our whole life will be different. And that is not the time to have to start mobilizing a network. Serving a network, talking to people, connecting with people, sharing ideas, sharing content, sharing videos, asking them thoughtful questions. This is the stuff that develops your brand and your reputation as a professional with character, so that when you need to tap into your network wants to help you. This is why we call it Work It Daily. The reason the company is named Work It Daily is that if you are not working it daily, if you are not finding a way to do something to grow your career, not working your job, we all work in our jobs, grow your career, whether it's networking strategically on LinkedIn, attending a session like this, joining Work It Daily and working with us in our phone app every day, whatever it is, if you are not working it daily, you are not winning, you are not growing. And networking is one aspect of that. So I hope I've inspired you all. And I hope you come back next week. Again, comments, questions, feedback, please put them in the chat. We've got a couple of amazing sessions coming up next week. If you follow JT's Talks Jobs, the hashtag, you'll see Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. I'm going to be doing a session that's pretty powerful on why you're still unemployed. That should be a pretty impactful session. And then next Thursday, I'm going to be talking about best practices for being in a group interview. Group interviews are getting really more common these days. So unemployed, group interview next week. Follow my feed. You'll get more information on how to attend. And again, one more time, just a plug for it. Do you think we should do some live call-ins? Should we do a live call-in show? Let me know. I would love your feedback on that as well. Okay. Awesome. All right. You know what? You guys are the best. Thank you so much. I'm just so grateful that you're coming here. You know, our mission at Work It Daily is to help 1 million people grow their careers in 2020. And this is one of the ways we're doing it. And we couldn't do it without you. So I hope it's working. If it's working, let us know. If it's helping you in some small way, we'd like to hear from you. And I will see you again next week. Okay. All right, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.